TIFU by asking my parents when they fucked. No, not clickbait. This is word for word what happened. Obligatory didn't happen today. But I've never told anyone this story, so I figured I should before I die. So when I was about 7, my parents took me and my little sister to the park. As parents do. Someone had graffitied the slide with the word F, and being the curious kid I was, asked my dad what it meant. I hadn't had the birds and the bees talk yet, so my dad figured this was an appropriate time to do so. He goes through the basic idea. Man puts pee in woman, and she has a baby grow in her tummy. That's what the word meant. Too bad he forgot to tell me that it was a swear and not the proper term for the act. Fast forward to a few weeks later. My parents sat me down and revealed that my mom was going to have another baby. I was confused. Don't two people have to F to make a baby? I certainly never saw my parents do such a thing. So I had to ask, when did you F? Obviously my mother lost it and demanded I tell her who taught me that word. Whether it was one of the neighborhood kids or someone from school. I told her dad taught me. Needless to say, my dad probably didn't get another F for a while after that. TL. Doctor, dad told me what F meant, but forgot to tell me I shouldn't say it. Ended up asking mom why I never saw them make a baby in the most inappropriate way possible. Lol, I remember learning that fuck was a bad word when my family was sitting down to dinner. When our grandma was over one night, my sister wanted to go through all the words that rhymed with duck starting from the beginning of the alphabet. Neither of us knew the word was bad. And it's not like my parents didn't see it coming. So she says fuck, and immediately my mom gets super pissed. Yells at her to go to her room. I'm older than her, but at the time I was also too young to understand. So I keep asking what did she say? Why did you get mad? Etc. And meanwhile my grandma is just laughing in her cute little old lady chuckles. My dad was just like, really? The kids don't know. Let her come back for supper. Took me a long while afterwards to really know what that word meant lol. My sister and I discovered it singing the Name Game song. Our grandpa's name was Buck. F Buck. All my homies fucked Buck. My name's Buck, and I'm here to fuck. Where's Bill? That is hilarious. Do they at least laugh about it now though? To be honest I've never, ever mentioned it since. I'm not even sure if they remember. They 100% remember. They probably still look at you and think woo. He turned out pretty normal considering that one time he asked us when did you fuck? They're waiting. When he announces their first grandkid, his parents will be like so when did you fuck? I remember my parents telling me how babies are made. I kept saying very loudly that they had only had sex twice then. Once for me and once for my brother. We were in public. Strangers were laughing. How old were you? 36. I literally LMAO'd at this comment. I'm reminded of the time I was in nursery school, so around 4 years old, and I horrified the teacher by repeating a naughty rhyme. She told my mother about it when she came to pick me up, and my mother was really embarrassed. She told the teacher that my father had taught it to me, and I had no idea what it actually meant, which was true. The rhyme that got me into trouble. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jill forgot to take her pill and now they have a daughter. That's hilarious. The rhyme as well as the story. I lost it when I imagined you saying when did you fuck? Feo me too. I have a 7-year-old and I picture her saying it in her cute, puzzled voice and I just crack up so hard. We are about to have dinner and I think I might choke and die. In 2nd grade art class one of my daughter's classmates spelled F-U-C-K. My innocent daughter with excellent phonics skills overheard and said F quite happily. She got sent to the office and the homeroom teacher called me. I laughed, which is not what they were looking for as a response. I pointed out that being an expert in childhood development, they should know the best thing to do would have been to ignore it, or to calmly tell her it's not a polite word, and to move on. Making a huge deal if it guaranteed every kid in that class now knows the word F and is dying for a chance to use it to show how cool they are. I'm surprised he was like F. Yup, it means to make a child, not the typical F this, F that guy, or F it, that is most common. The first thing any parent should have said was it's a bad word, and then explain the various ways people use it. I probably wouldn't have even connected it to sex for them. Keep swears and important conversations separate. Yeah. This is definitely dad's fuck up more than ops. Although telling kids that's a bad word and you should never ever say it also often backfires. Although telling kids that's a bad word and you should never ever say it also often backfires. Yeah. My parents took the it's inappropriate to say in public. You will get in trouble with teachers approach. Rather than it's bad. Never say it. Worked really well for me growing up. Never got in trouble to my memory. Of course. Nowadays I use it so casually that I genuinely forget that other people don't want their children to hear it. Thank God I avoid children for the most part anyway. Reminds me of when I was around that same age. Me and some friends were playing in the park and came across some graffiti that said condom. Me being a naive kid tell my new friends that I used to live in a condom before I moved into the neighborhood. The word I was going for was condominium. I did this exact thing. I thought the word condom meant condominium for the longest time. I used it in that context multiple times until finally my uncle was like, that word doesn't mean what you think it means. Well, it's literally the first 6 letters of the word. Makes me feel better that I wasn't the only kid who didn't know what a condom was at 8 years old. Those kids made me feel like an idiot for not knowing. 24 years later, and I can still remember how I felt. Looking back now, it's pretty fucked up that 8-9 year olds all knew what one was. Can confirm. Am adult in 30s was pretty confused why condos are called as such when I first heard the term. Where I grew up we didn't call them condos, we called them apartments or flats or buildings. When I was about 6 I asked my father what the word orgy meant. I genuinely did not know and had only heard there was a rock band named Orgy that had a cool song called Blue Monday, a New Order cover. He just said never to say that word again and didn't ask any other follow-up questions. I'm sure that probably disturbed him for years. When I was a smartass 11-year-old I told my mother that of course I knew what oral sex was. It's when you talk sexy to someone on the phone and had to be very promptly and sternly corrected. Probably better to ask than it is to assume. Of course they gonna know what intercourse is, they got Discovery Channel don't they? That's how I read your sentence lol. Could be worse. When I was a kid my eldest brother taught me to swear when I first began to talk, and once when my parents had all their friends over I wanted out of the crib, so I started to shake the bars and yell wipe my fucking nose. LMAO. Similar thing happened to someone I knew. Similar age. He read big black dick spray painted on a wall. His mother at dinner mentioned she dated a black person. I have no idea the context, and he blurts out did you suck his big black dick not even knowing what he said, and just kept eating his meal expecting an answer. Makes me laugh every time I think about it. Your story is right on paragraph. When did you fuck LMAO? I don't know how old you are, but you have to ask your parents about that. Especially your dad. Lol. But she definitely did. My brother and I have a 9-year gap. When he was 2 he asked mom, in all his innocence, how are babies made? I snorted and laughed like any teen who hears about sex. Also in the way of, yes mother explained this to a toddler. She glared at me for laughing. Then sweetly told my brother to ask your sibling. I crashed and burned. She won that round. So you must be 11. Different cultures. So I got her ask, what the hell is bees fucking birds? The birds and the bees is a euphemism usually used to describe sex in the situation of telling your kids about it. In a sentence, I think it's time we tell to me about the birds and the bees. Apostrophe. I grew up next to a family whose 16-year-old son believed his parents had only 4 times. Once on their wedding night to legitimize his world, their marriage, then once for each of their 3 children. The most I was able to change his belief was to point out that they may have had to do it a couple of times for each kid. Lots of kids like that in Utah. Lol. Poor souls. I watched a movie in 3rd grade where a woman mentioned having a major orgasm, and for some reason I thought she was referring to a fart. One night around the dinner table my dad made an allusion to a bad odor in the room. So I said, you just had a major orgasm. My parents just froze. Do you know what that word means? Yeah. A fart. They started hysterically laughing. No it doesn't. And left it at that. Prepare for that story to be told on your wedding. D. Oh thank god it was just you being a dumb kid. I was afraid this was gonna be a story where someone did the math and realized you couldn't have been conceived when you were there for blowing the lid on your mother's affair or something like that. Nah but that's a story for another time. Maybe next post. Now. Oh. Your dad was fucked alright. This is hilarious. It reminds me of when my husband had a vasectomy and we had to explain it to our 5-year-old because he wanted to know why daddy couldn't play with him for a bit. That turned into me getting a phone call the next day from school because my son told the whole class that when boys grow up they get their penises zapped like my dad did, which made some of them cry. This one made me laugh so hard I had tears in my eyes. My husband asked what was so funny, so I read your comment to him. He did not find it amusing at all. No sense of humor. That man. He's glaring at me because I'm still laughing. It was the most awkward conversation with a kindergarten teacher I never imagined I'd have. I would have loved to seen your dad's reaction when you asked. When my father sat down for the talk I explained that by that point I had already figured out the inner workings of the deed. And then proceeded to ask when did you guys do it last? To which he replied last night. Why the f did I ask? I will never know. The real question is why did he tell you? I guarantee one of your parents remembers this. Especially if you were their first kid. Just sit on this one until you have a child of your own. When you and your partner tell your parents. After you do it formally. Just sit there for a second in silence. Then yell we fucked. Very similar story. When I was still going to preschool my dad would drop me off on his way to work. When he was late he would start swearing and say fuck a lot. I think I just equated that word to being late. Then one day when the whole family was driving to a movie my mom said she was worried we would be late. I just blurted out fuck. My mom got really mad and demanded to know where I learned that word. Eventually she deduced I had learned it from my father. Now he barely swears haha. Yo bitches. When did y'all motherfuckers bump uglies, son? You're 3. Kids are the absolute best entertainment. When my son was about 7 this conversation happened. Friend to me, I'm playing truth or dare with my boyfriend over the phone. What should I dare him? Son who overheard. Dare him to make out with you. Me. Oh yeah. What does make out mean? Son. You know. It's that silly thing. Friend. What silly thing? Son. Looking thoughtful / pensive. Oh I know. It's when the man shoves the pee up the vagina. Accompanied by an enthusiastic uppercut punching motion. Lol. Must remember to have a proper conversation about this. Now that he's a teenager. Make sure he realizes that you never go in with fisting straight up. Okay. I lolled at the enthusiastic uppercut. I almost spat my dinner all over the table. Then I lolled. When my little sister was in 1st grade, she came home from school one day and asked my mom how come dad didn't squish her when they had sex. Without skipping a beat or even blinking, my mom said, because he uses his muscles to hold himself up. Honey, my parents were always very open and honest. If we had questions about literally anything, we still laugh about that exchange today. Reminds me how a girl I went to school with said that as her first word. Mama came barging into the family room going, who taught my daughter that word? Her cousin went FCK. I dunno.